All right, today I want to talk about one of the most frustrating things we have to deal with as long-term travelers, and that is all of the red tape around international one-way flights and the rules that we've had to learn how to get around in order to keep living this lifestyle. Now, this is something that I've never had to think about until about a year ago. For the first 30 years of my life, anytime I left my home country, it was always just on a vacation, right? I'd request a week or two off of work and then plan out a whole trip and have all the transportation taken care of up front. So anytime I left my country, I always had a return flight associated with that plane ticket. But for the past year traveling with Lexi, most of our flights have been one-way flights. Usually when we enter a new country, we don't know how long we're gonna be there or where we're gonna go next. And that kind of thing raises a lot more questions. So it turns out a lot of countries require you to have proof that you're gonna leave the country before you enter as a tourist. So for example, if a country lets you stay for 90 days, then they want to see something that shows that you're going to leave the country within 90 days. This could be a plane ticket or a train, a ferry, a bus, just something that gets you out of their country. Now, on the surface, this makes sense, right? They just want to make sure you're not planning on staying forever. But it definitely makes things a lot more challenging for people like us who don't want to plan things so far in advance. The more we've traveled, the more we've learned the importance of being flexible, and having to always plan out our transportation weeks in advance would kill a lot of the spontaneity that we like about traveling this way. So we're often in a situation where we're about to fly to a new country and we don't have an exit ticket. We don't know when we're gonna leave the country, and we don't know where we're going next. And here's the thing, it's not illegal to not have a plan. It's not illegal to plan things out at the last minute as long as we actually leave the country before our tourist visa expires. So that's why I'm going to call this red tape. Sometimes they make you show what they call proof of onward travel when it doesn't actually matter. And really, it's the airlines that are the ones enforcing this. So apparently, if an airline flies you to a new country and you can't get into that country, they could be responsible for flying you back. So it's in their best interest to make sure you meet all the requirements before they fly you somewhere. Can't really blame them for that, but it's still super annoying. So how often does this actually happen? How often do they actually check? Well, over the past year, we've had 13 flights that were international one-way flights to a country where we didn't live. And for all of those, we didn't have a solid plan for when and where we were going next. And out of those 13 flights where we didn't have proof of onward travel, we were questioned on 3 of those. So that's about a quarter of them. And here's what we did in each case. So number 1 was flying from Chicago to Sofia, Bulgaria. And this was the first time we ever flew internationally on a one-way ticket, and it was immediately questioned. We didn't really know what the rules were, so this led to a very confusing interaction. So the woman at the airline was like, "I see this is a one-way ticket, when are you going back home?" And we were just like, I don't know, maybe in like 5 months or so. And she was like, "Well, you can only stay in Bulgaria for 90 days, so I can't let you fly." And then we were like, no, we're only gonna be in Bulgaria for about a month. We just don't know where we're going after that. And no matter how much we explained, this lady was just like, no, I need to see proof that you're leaving Bulgaria within 90 days. So I did some frantic Googling on the spot, and this is what I found. So apparently this is a common enough situation that there are a whole bunch of websites set up specifically to solve this. So if you Google for proof of onward travel, you'll find a bunch of sites with names like onwardticket.com and dummyticket.com that will essentially sell you a fake plane ticket for a small fee that they claim can kind of get you around this situation. And I thought about doing this, but it seemed a little sketchy. But then I remembered that flights to the US are fully refundable within 24 hours. Like, this is a law. Even if a ticket says it's non-refundable, if it's to or from the US, it has to be fully refundable within 24 hours. So I was just like, hang on, I'll book a flight home. And I just pulled out my phone and booked an actual flight back to Chicago right in front of her. And she actually just took my word for it. Even though we had an actual plane ticket, she didn't actually ask to look at it. She just, trusted us that we booked one. So then we flew to Bulgaria and then immediately canceled that plane ticket. Oh, and real quick, before I get into the next 2 times we had to deal with this, I'd really appreciate a click on that like button down there. It really helps these videos spread to more people and gives me more motivation to keep making these. So the second time this happened was also in Chicago as we were headed to Chiang Mai, Thailand. So the same thing happened. The woman at the airport was like, I see this is a one-way ticket. Do you have your flight out of Thailand? And we were like, no, we don't have a flight yet. And this time we actually just made up some story about when and where we might go next. And this agent actually didn't care too much. She was just like, yeah, I really suggest buying your exit ticket before you get on that plane. But she let us off the hook. But the people in line next to us with a different agent were questioned about the same thing, and they actually had to show their exit ticket. So I guess even within an airline, you could get lucky or unlucky just depending on what agent you get. The third time this happened was by far the strictest. So this was in Sapporo, Japan, as we were about to fly to Seoul, South Korea. And these both seem like countries that really follow the rules. So this time I came more prepared. So as we were in line waiting to check in, I just started filling out all the details for an actual plane ticket. So I got all the way to the end and then just stopped before I clicked the purchase button. So we get to the front and the guy immediately asks for our flight out of South Korea. So I tell him our made up date, and then he says he wants to actually see the ticket and he needs to write down our flight info. So this is the first time where they've actually wanted to write something down. So I just stalled him for a bit. I was like, hang on, let me see if I can find the email. When in reality, I was just finishing the process of booking that flight. So I booked the flight on the spot, showed him the ticket. He wrote down the flight number and the confirmation number, and he let us fly. And then once we got into South Korea, we just canceled that plane ticket. Now, here's the funny part. We've entered 13 countries on a one-way ticket, but not a single one has actually cared at the airport at passport control. Maybe there are some countries where the immigration departments care about this, but we have yet to see that be the case. In every case, it's only been the airlines that care about this rule. They are the sticklers. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't actually a big deal. It feels super annoying that we essentially have to lie to people at airlines and buy plane tickets that we know we're going to cancel. It feels like a bunch of dumb bureaucracy, especially since nobody actually holds you to whatever plan you show them. And I'm super happy that this rule is so easy to get around, because the more we've traveled, the more we've realized that the best plan is just not sticking to any plan. Some of the best parts of this journey so far have been the times where we stayed somewhere longer than we expected to. For example, right now we are on the island of Gili Air in Indonesia. And when we came here, we only had 4 nights booked. There's a bunch of other islands in the area, and we figured we want to stay on some of those as well. But then when we got here, we really fell in love with this particular island. So we extended our stay here. And then we extended our stay again. And now those 4 nights are turning into 11 nights on this island. And at this point, we won't even be leaving Indonesia when we thought we would. And that's what I love about long-term travel. Like, as long as we don't overstay our tourist visa, it doesn't actually matter if we constantly change our plans. Being flexible is so much better than having to figure out weeks in advance when we're gonna leave. Now, I mentioned that we flew into a lot of different countries on one-way tickets, and if you wanna see the first word that pops into my head when I think of each of these countries, go ahead and give this video a watch. And if not, I will see you in the next one.